What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Lately in the last two patches there's been some really ridiculous imbalance. What with the Juggernaut update, the Gangplank and Fiora rework, some hot fixes, and a few other things. It's the first time in actually quite a while, since the patches around when Cinderhulk came out, that League has been in an overwhelmingly unbalanced state. I wanted to go into a bit of why we see these unbalanced game states take place, because this kind of thing reoccurs a few times every single season, despite Riot spending so much time constantly balancing and rebalancing aspects of the game. Let's get started. The first thing I want to go over is why League of Legends is ridiculously hard to balance. The thing is that so much of balance in League isn't about how a change directly impacts a character, but rather how a change impacts the rest of the game that is completely unrelated to the change you actually made. When you introduce a new champion or item, or buff or nerf an existing champion, you have to balance them with an insane number of things in mind, because you don't know if that change you make is going to be what kills a certain strategy or a certain playstyle, or maybe on the other hand makes a new strategy or playstyle completely overpowered. All of the balance in League is directly relevant to the meta, and making something balanced often ends up being a total crapshoot, because you can't always predict how the new change will match up to the rest of the meta until you can see that thing played on hundreds of thousands of games across all skill levels, and the PBE definitely does not cover that. I mean, you can certainly try, but a lot of times things just aren't what you would expect to see on paper. So the reality is that there isn't really a perfectly reliable way to test balance most of the time until you just put out the change, since it's hard to accurately judge how balanced something is even after just a few hundred games in playtesting. Sure, there's definitely exceptions, but I think that runs true most of the time, and it's why League of Legends sees so many imbalanced releases. I mean, the last release I can think of that was actually balanced was maybe Vel'Koz, and he was released over a year and a half ago. And so it's a big part of why we see a patch every 2 weeks, because the only reliable way to test a balance change is to just release it to the live servers. And this leads me into my next point, that because League of Legends is such a difficult game to balance, and this is going to sound really weird, so hear me out. Because League of Legends is such a difficult game to balance, balance changes in League are not made with the purpose of balancing the game. That just happens to be the consistent side effect. If balance changes were made for the sole purpose of balancing the game, things that have no counterplay would be completely removed from the game, because those mechanics are by definition imbalanced. Rather, these changes are made with the purpose of keeping the game fun and interesting. Balance just happens to do that most of the time, because imbalanced gameplay directly prevents the game from being fun and interesting. Overpowered champions, items, and mechanics are no fun to play against, and likewise, it's no fun to play as the underpowered ones either. But champions are given mechanics like that quite often that directly go against the concept of being balanced, in favor of having fun and unique gameplay in their kits, and that's why so many champions have been imbalanced here and there, because their kits themselves are unbalanced from a design standpoint. And this holds true with the Juggernauts as well, as they were given unique and interesting kits that happen to have pretty unfair elements. For example, getting hit by a Darius hook or Mordekaiser's third Q proc isn't exactly balanced gameplay, but they create exciting kits with interesting interactions between their abilities and their opponents. It might not be balanced, but it's still good gameplay in the sense that it's fun, once it's at least finally toned down to the scope of the meta. Now, don't take this to mean that balancing the game isn't important. It's obviously very important. It's just that the philosophy Riot takes when balancing the game is about creating a fun gameplay experience over everything else, and they prioritize that over creating balanced mechanics just about every single time. This results in champions that are fun as hell to play, but also have, at least on paper, poorly designed kits in terms of balance, and inherently have a lot of imbalanced mechanics. But the thing is, at the end of the day, Riot makes an awesome game because of it, and we end up with a system that results in what is known as perfect imbalance. It's just that a lot of imbalances are going to pop up here and there because a large majority, in fact almost all of the characters in the game, have some element of imbalance to them. But as long as their power is okay, relevant to the meta, it's going to work out. It's just that there's always going to be these crazy edge cases like the Juggernaut update. I mentioned earlier that this kind of imbalanced state happens quite a few times every season, and it really does, and it's going to happen in the future for sure, because it's a necessary evil for the game to stay fun and exciting and have interesting elements of gameplay to it. So what do you think about the unbalanced state of League? Leave a comment, and thanks for watching.
Engaging to a game that he sure to lose. Major symptomatic fecal flaws due to twisting, gut afflictions, back and forth, then it's time I know.